Hey there! When checking if a record exists in the database, many developers use count greater than 0. While this approach works, it is not the most efficient way. That's why in this Laravel tutorial, I'll explain why using count greater than 0 isn't the best choice for checking if a record exists. By the end of this video, you'll learn about a method that is much more efficient than count when used with large datasets. Let's dive in. For this tutorial, I've seeded 1 million rows into a product table. I didn't add any indexes because I want to keep things as straightforward as possible. Let's assume we want to check if there is a listed product with a price greater than 50. I'm going to use the DB facade to enable and then die and dump the query log. So that is db enable query log. Here die and dump db get query log. All right. Now I'm going to run this chunk of code via a unit test, and I'm going to use best for this. So let's take a look at the query that results from using count and also how fast it performs. All right, so here we have the query, and here we have the time it took to execute the whole thing. So this is in milliseconds. So the query took 246 milliseconds. Let's run it once again and see if we get other numbers. All right, so let's say that we have an average of 240 milliseconds. Now, let's see what this query does after all. This query scans through the table to count all matching rows where is listed and price columns meet the criteria. Even if it finds a match early in the scan, it continues through the entire dataset to get an exact count, which makes it more costly, especially on large datasets similar to the one I'm using in this example. So on a table with 1 million records without any indexes, this query took about 240 milliseconds on my machine. And it goes without saying that the query time will increase exponentially with the number of records. Let's now look at a better alternative. Instead of using count, we can use exists. Now let's run the test once again, and here we have the result. It took almost 2 milliseconds to run this query, and as you can see, the average is about, let's say, 1.8 milliseconds. So what is the deal with this new query? This query checks for the existence of at least one row that meets the conditions, and it stops as soon as it finds the first matching record. And this is the most important part. This is great as it minimizes the workload on the database, making it significantly faster for large dataset. So this query took on average 1.8 milliseconds compared to the other one, which took about 240 milliseconds. So the difference is huge. If we compare the performance improvement, it would be around 99%, at least on my machine and with 1 million rows as dataset. It goes without saying that the percentage difference depends on the size of the dataset. which is known as the scaling effect. When the dataset is small, the performance difference is also small. However, as the dataset grows larger, the performance difference becomes more noticeable. In conclusion, it is much more efficient to use exists instead of count greater than 0 when we want to check if a record exists in a database, regardless of how large the data is. Alright, that was it. I hope you got at least one useful piece of information from this video, and maybe you even enjoyed it. If you have any feedback or if you know any other efficient ways to check if a record exists, leave me a comment below. I do read all the comments. Also, consider checking out the other tutorials on this channel. Wishing you a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.